want to take the challenging factor of it to make it this perfect thing, to take that away and just get to the basics of making bread. The video you are about to watch right now is of me making bread for my family. I am actually gluten-free. I don't eat any of the bread that I actually make, but it was my goal a few years ago to start making all the bread for my family. I love it. So I'm thankful that I'm still able to touch flour without having a reaction, because I know some people can't do that. But I just find so much joy in making it and kneading the bread and stretching and folding it. And I think that's also why I love doing patterns on my bread so much and scoring, because that's the fun part of it for me. I don't get to enjoy the eating part except seeing my family enjoy it. And I really do love to see when I try like a new recipe, like this one you're gonna watch right here was a total hit. They loved it. That EINKORN flour just adds a really cool flavor. I think that's why I just really love the process of making bread. You can go easy yeast bread, you can go sourdough bread, you can grind your own flour, you can not grind your own flour. But making bread with 3 ingredients is going to be so much more filled with nutrition than buying the bread at the store that is filled with so many ingredients that you cannot pronounce. Now, I get that there's totally seasons where that is what you have to do, and you just have to buy the bread, and that's okay. There's no guilt and there's no shame in needing to buy bread from the store. But I do want to share with you all how it can actually be pretty simple to just make the bread, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't have to look like beautiful. I've messed up on so many doughs and I just put it in the oven anyways. And even if it's a little bit flatter, just cut it and dip it in some soup. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I want to be able to help people learn to make bread and not to be worried about it being perfect and fussy. I want to take the challenging factor of it to make it this perfect thing, to take that away and just get to the basics of making bread. Like back in the day, they didn't have scales. They didn't have anything like that. I just made the other day this sourdough loaf, not the one you're gonna see right now, but the other day, I was like, I'm not gonna measure. I'm just gonna try and make this sourdough without measuring. My daughter just came up to me and she was like, that was such a good loaf of bread. What did you do different? So I feel like we can make things really fussy and we can make things really difficult, but I feel like it's not supposed to be that way. Yes, there are times and places for things to be as elaborate as we can make them, but when you're just trying to make some bread for dinner, I think we just need to take the pressure off, take the load off of being perfect, and just make some bread. So the recipe today is an EINKORN and a bread flour recipe. If you're looking for a very easy bread recipe, I'll put the link down below. It's a recipe Jill Winger has, and it's fabulous. It's so easy. It rises in an hour and a half. Like if it's 2 in the afternoon, I'm like, oh gosh, I need bread for dinner. I can make it and it will be ready in time for dinner. You can turn it into rolls, you can turn it into pizza crust, you can turn it into sandwich bread. So if you're looking for an easy one and not a sourdough little more elaborate, weighing things recipe, that recipe is down below. I hope you enjoy watching this, and I hope you can feel the love that I put into making this bread through this video. And please let me know if you try it and if you love it. I am going to make EINKORN sourdough. I'm going to be adding 200 grams of active bubbly starter. This is what my starter looks like right now. This is what it looks like. You can put water in first or you can do it this way. I have found no difference in whether I do the water first or the sourdough starter. One reason some people like to put water in first is because when they put the sourdough starter on it, if the sourdough starter is floating, then they know that it's ready, but I know this is 100% ready. I fed it last night, it was ready this morning. I'm going to add 650 grams of lukewarm water. I warmed this water up to about in the 90s. You don't have to do that. You could just do room temperature. I just find that it rises quicker if stuff's warm. I also do freshly ground wheat berries, and those are warm, so that also aids to it. But you can just do room temperature. It just might take a little bit longer. That's why I like to use a little bit warmer water. I then mix all of this up till it's milky and dissolved. It doesn't have to be perfectly dissolved, but just somewhat. This is the brand of whole wheat berries I have been using lately. I do have other brands that I've gotten from Azure Standard, but I was gifted this by a friend who orders from this company, and I have really enjoyed their wheat berries. They are organic. I don't even know what salmon safe. Do you know what salmon safe means? GMO free. They're just all of the things. They're kosher. Yeah. They are a good company if you're wondering who to order from. It's Washington State. Yeah, so this is a organic whole grain einkorn wheat. And I just love that it has a little deer. This is our vacuum sealer that we love. It's Meet Your Maker. Our grinder, and then our dehydrator and my kettle. This is a working kitchen, y'all. So I have the Mock Mill. Come on, focus. I have the Mock Mill Lino 200. Okay, a little tip. I need a total of 950 grams of flour. So I do the freshly ground wheat berries first, because then I don't have to measure them first and then grind them and then measure them again. I guess about what's gonna be about half. I grind all of those, add those to my water while I have it on the scale so I can see how many grams of flour it was. And then I make up the difference with bread flour so that I have a total of 950 grams of flour in the end. So this 550 grams of einkorn flour is what I ended up adding. And then we will do 400 grams of bread flour. This is gonna help it rise and just be really fluffy. Now for the fun part is the mixing. Take off my mama's ring. I always put it on the other hand. If you don't know, when my mom passed, my dad gave me her wedding ring, even though it's very, very dirty. Let's see, come on. I love it, and I wear it on my right hand. So when I am mixing, I just transfer all the rings to this hand. And then slowly mix. And just know it's gonna be messy. Once it's fully incorporated, I'll cover it and let it sit for 30 minutes so that the flour will get fully hydrated. I try and scrape off as much as I can. Put it back in. But it is a messy job. It's like Play-Doh, way more messy. I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to add the salt. Now, the kind of salt that I like to use, I get it from Azure, and I don't know, do you guys say Azure or Azure? Whatever it is. This is a Himalayan pink salt, but it's velvet, extra fine. It is literally like powder. So you do not have to use this kind of salt. I just like this for baking because it dissolves. I actually bought it on accident one time. I keep it in stock in our house now. I have the really, really big thing of normal salt, like the Red Min's, like really good salt for just everyday salt stuff. But I like this because it dissolves really quickly. I'm going to add about 27 grams. You can add more if you like it salty, or you can add less if you don't like it as salty. We like things to actually taste, so. I'm going to dimple it in. So I go like this, just dimple it in. I'm going to start mixing it for about 5 minutes. Cover it for 15 minutes, and this is when the stretch and folds start. I do 3 15-minute stretch and folds, like do a stretch and fold, wait 15 minutes, do another stretch and fold, wait 15 minutes, do another stretch and fold, and then we do 4 stretch and folds every 30 minutes. This is how I stretch and fold. I get my hands a little bit wet. And then here's what the dough looks like. Take it, rotate, kind of scoop from underneath, stretch and fold. I go around it 4 times, each side. And then I just kind of like around the corners, I kind of just pinch up the edges and fold it into itself. All right, and I cover it up. Set my timer for 15 more minutes. Stretch and fold number 2. This is what the dough looks like now. Starting to gain some more structure. We're going to do our 3rd stretch and fold. Now, with einkorn flour, it is going to make your dough more sticky and not as elastic because of the way the gluten is in the einkorn. Mine has been stretching fine. We do have bread flour in here, and that is why it is stretching it all. If you do just einkorn flour, you have it where it's on your bench and you press it out and then you fold it like that. I'm doing it the typical sourdough way because I do have bread flour in here as well. Just want to give you a heads up on if you just did strictly einkorn. This is not a recipe for strictly einkorn flour. You can find those on the internet. See, I'm still, because there's bread flour in here, I am still finding it plenty stretchy. I mean, look at that. It's beautiful. Now that it's starting to build a little more structure, once I pull it in on itself, I'm actually going to flip it over to where it will be like that. Now, covering it back up. All right, it's been 30 minutes, and now we're going to do the stretch and fold. Now you can see the structure is starting to build even more, so it's not as stretchy as it was. So we just do the best you can, stretch and right.
You want to buy me something on your. You're making brownies? Can I have some when they're done? No. Thanks.
You're making brownies right now?
Once I take my.
That spot over there where we dug out, we went to fix it last night. We may have to try to set up something like that. What do you think, Adam? That ain't good. That's the one thing that they say is hard to do. Catch a trap smart. So you load this thing up with, I think, 10 rounds. You swing it in. Then you got 2 10 right there. That's a game.
All right, we did our last stretch and fold, and now I'm going to let it rise covered on the counter for a couple hours at least, basically until it doubles in size. And then we will split it, separate, and then put in our Beniton baskets. It's late into the night, but it is now time to separate the dough and shape them, and then put them in their baskets. This is how much it rose. After they're shaped, I let them sit for 20 minutes and then I will shape them again. Just got out of the shower, and this is actually not the next day from making the dough. The dough has been in the fridge long fermenting for 2 days. Yesterday got crazy and I couldn't actually bake the bread. So how you're going to bake this is preheat your oven to 450 and put your Dutch oven in there for 30 to 60 minutes. I typically do 30 because I'm usually in a hurry. Today it's been in there for 60 minutes. I haven't noticed any difference between those. You just want your Dutch oven hot and your oven hot. My oven runs hot, so the way I bake it is at 445 for 38 minutes. And then I take the lid off, turn it down to 435, and let it bake for in between 10 to 13 minutes, depending on, some breads are a little bit more brown and I'm like, they don't need much more, so I do about 10 minutes. So you're gonna kind of have to gauge with your oven. There's so many different temperatures to bake things. This is just what works good for my oven situation. I just scored this really simple pattern. It's one of my favorites, and let's put it in. Looks perfect. Okay, we're gonna let that brown for about 10 minutes because it looks pretty done. Beautiful. All right, here's the finished loaves. This one turned out the best. Scoring on it. The ear. The loaves of bread just saved my camera lens. I literally caught the camera with my bread in my hands.